Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Catherine here from Alula, one of our Fireside chats. This is actually our final one of 2025. And we're really honored to have Kerrie-Anne Bradley with us. I've known Kerrie-Anne for a really long time now, actually. We met, I believe, just around lockdown. And I remember Kerrie-Anne being a lifesaver because we did a whole series of Pilates lessons online. And it was very, focused on movement and breathing and alignment. And it was so interesting how much that actually just transformed, my body and how I was feeling. And especially as a parent who was dealing with young kids locked down. So that was actually a really important avenue for support. So we have Kerrie-Anne on today, and we've been trying to schedule this for a little while. And I think this is such an important chat to have because I know we often talk about the sort of the psychological and the emotional side as, psychologists, but something that I'm a real believer in is the importance of the body and, movement and how that also impacts our nervous systems. And I know that that's something you're really passionate about as well. So this felt like a really fitting chat. So Kerrie-Anne Bradley is, prolific in terms of content and coming out with things to support, people, not just parents. And I know that you have a number of, ventures under your umbrella, kerrieannebradley.com. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about, some of those things and how people could plug into you as well. And then obviously you do a bit of an intro, tell us wonderful things about yourself, and then we'll get going.
Sure. So thank you for that very nice introduction. So I started out actually, so I'm a parent, as Catherine said, and I started out working at a desk for 10 years after university. I was an economist, and with that, I had a whole shopping list of desk-related aches and pains, but also I was massively anxious, very stressed the entire time. And I really wasn't enjoying being an economist anymore. And so I retrained in Pilates and I started working really in studios and teaching reformer classes and mat classes. And then a little way into my journey, I realized actually, do you know what I need to be doing? I need to be showing people like me how to move when they're actually at work, because that would be a real opportunity to get movement into their bank, so credit in their movement bank, but also a really good way of changing how they feel then and there. And a huge proportion of the people I was working with in one-to-ones and group classes worked in offices, and also many of those were parents too. So my client base really is people who work at desks, parents, but parents of all ages. So for a long time, I was teaching my one-to-ones group classes and also had a brand called Pilates at Your Desk and was teaching people, offices around the world, my desk-based moves. And then a few months ago, I rebranded as my name, kerrieannebradley.com. And under that, I've got a few things. So I've got Move at Your Desk Method, which is the work I do with workplaces, but also with schools. And then I have my movement for individuals, so group classes and one-to-ones. And then also I offer movement mentorship for movement teachers. So that's really all that I do. And in terms of what I teach these days, yes, my background is in Pilates, but over the years I've brought in somatics, functional movement, play-inspired movement, because there's no better way to change how you feel than rolling around on the floor. And
Yeah.
and uh, and so it's really like a blend. I use the principles of Pilates, principles of good movement, because it's really important to me that people move from a place of safely, from a place of good alignment, so that then they can move more freely And yeah, but it really brings in other stuff now too, so that it's functional and you can do it anywhere, whether you're at your desk, you're on the sofa, you're on a mat, or you're just going about your daily life. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love that, and really why this conversation now, very much that sense that, like I said, we're coming to the end of the year. I think, as parents, we're often a bit worn down, if I'm being honest. The year sort of feels like sometimes it's sped up and dragged on in equal proportion. And I think over Christmas, there's often a lot of, expectation, or I should say the holidays, because I guess not everybody, celebrates Christmas, but, just that sense of it's the end of the year. There's a lot of pressure on, the new year is coming up. What are your goals? And, everyone's, off, and I think tensions can rise.
Yeah.
Meant to be this joyous time of the year, but I think sometimes and very often it can feel quite different to that. And I'm just such a big believer in skilling and making sure that people have many tools in their toolboxes
Yeah.
to manage stress and pressure. And movement is just one of those amazing quick fixes that I think we
Yeah.
take for granted. Like we don't, or we're not just take for granted. I think we actually don't give it its due credit. Like it's such
Yeah.
a thing. So that's why I thought this was such a good time to have this chat, because I'm thinking, what are some of the quick ideas we can maybe
Yeah.
suggest for parents, and kids as well. Actually, it's like sometimes you lead by example, so you learn things and then you teach your kids those same things. So maybe what would be great is you could actually show us a couple of things as we go
Yeah,
through
sure.
the conversation, and that would be really useful. But tell me a little bit about the play-based movement. Obviously, as soon as you said that, my ears pricked up. And I was, oh, what is that? So yeah, I'm so curious about that.
So I just feel like when we're children, we move our bodies in so many more different ways, and we're sort of uninhibited really, and we do stuff for fun. And then as you get older, you kind of shrink yourself down and you literally become confined to the space of a chair where you
Yeah.
can't move
Yeah.
very much. And I just started to introduce stuff into my teachings really, which were more about creating big shapes and doing, changing the intonation of my voice and stuff like that. Like you can be a big star or a little ball, and stuff which is very much like what you would expect to see children doing. And it just changes how you feel. It's remarkable. So other things, so I brought my mat here as well. So things you can do on a mat are things like rolling side to side, literally giving yourself a hug, acquainting yourself with the floor, rolling forwards and backwards. I can show you some of these in a moment if you want. Like
Yeah.
getting on your hands and knees and sort of crawling, bear crawls. Um, so doing that same one that I just showed you there, but on your back. Skipping. I'm a massive fan of
Oh,
skipping.
really?
Sometimes, yeah, like just not with a rope, just like skipping, like, skipping. Yeah. It's really difficult to be in a bad mood when you skip. And it has positive externalities because it'll make other people smile too, because it's quite good. Jumping is also fun, just bouncing, dancing, all these things that we sort of did as children and then we stopped doing. And actually, it's quite liberating to bring those back into your life and to do them, but to do them from a safe place, because sometimes I think part of why we don't do these things is because we're worried about hurting ourselves. And so knowing that you're safe, so quite often how I like to do it is that to start with the alignment piece, maybe have a good shake out, which is an awesome way of diffusing tension, shaking your body out, like literally wiggling it out, shaking it all about. It's like the nursery rhyme, isn't it? It is
Just
a
think that
nursery
as
rhyme.
well while you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're good. And then really going into more targeted movements, getting people to connect with their center so that when they make the bigger movements, they move those parts, head, arms, tailbone or sit bones and legs from the center. So it's about learning how to move your body from the center so that you can move more freely. And I think that's a really it's really a great way to learn how to be a child again.
No,
Yeah,
it sounds amazing. And again, for me, I hear that and I think, oh, that's such a nice way of parents moving, children and teens moving, and it would immediately just shift the energy
yeah.
in a
I mean,
space.
teens might, my teenage daughter, for example, can get quite embarrassed by me sometimes, but I know inside she's like, yeah, that's good. And sometimes she does dance with me in the kitchen.
In private.
Yeah, in private.
I mean, I think the part of your message that I actually really always connect with, because I see you on Instagram and I just think, oh, you'll do things like, for example, the shaking one. I actually saw it and I do use it actually quite often because I'll be in the middle of something and I think, it just like literally just shake it,
Yeah,
just move. And I like the idea of the bite-size
yeah,
movement. So I think often it can just feel like people are talking about ideas and strategies, but it feels like a big time commitment, like it's
yeah.
another thing I
Mm,
have to make the time to do. So
mm.
I love the idea of the bite-sized movements,
Yeah,
what for, let's say, for parents, you're busy, you've got a lot going on. What advice do you think you would give around this fitting in the bite-sized movements? Often
yeah,
question, how often am I supposed to do it? When am I
yeah.
supposed to do it?
So I think it's different for everybody. I think, but one thing I would say was start as early as you can, as in the day. So even if you just sit on the edge of your bed, and you might just, can you see me okay there? So
Yep.
you might just, put your hands on your knees, slide one arm up your leg, look over your shoulder, and then come back. So just rotate your spine a little bit. Before you get out of your bed, you might also tilt your pelvis under around your back, a bit like cat cow, but sitting on the bed version. You could do it on the floor as well. And there's this beautiful word called pandiculation, which is the art of stretching and yawning. So you can hug yourself, reaching your arms up and then circling them down. And that's your big yawn, big breath in and then out. And what's amazing about this is it's sort of like what cats and dogs do when they get up from sleeping. They never just jump up and go and get coffee or go to the loo, whatever. They will stretch out first. And this is what
Yeah.
it is. It's taking it so you can side bend as well. Hopefully you can see me okay.
And yeah, no.
Yeah. So, and then just like wiggling out, literally preparing your body for the day. And it doesn't have to be a massive, big amount of time. It can be a minute or two. If you don't even have that, stand up, shake out, take a big breath in and a wiggle, big breath in and a wiggle. Do that 3 times. But it's preparing your body for the day. But it also sets the tune for the day, as in you're saying to yourself, I can move and I've started my day with it, therefore I can do more of it. And some of the ways in which, so you, again, it can be a couple of minutes whenever you have a couple of minutes. So times where you might have a couple of minutes if you're working during the day, perhaps between meetings, or you could tie it up to other things you do. So if you go and get a coffee or something or a cup of tea, then you might go back and to what you're doing and have a little wiggle out there or a few movements there. And over throughout the day, you just find these small pockets of time to have these movement snacks, as it were, or movement
Mhm.
breaks. And then over the course of the day, you've really built up, you've really moved quite a bit. Um, and at the very least, this is really great for keeping your body mobile, understanding where your body is in space. It can change how you feel. It's great for your nervous system. It's really energizing as well. Literally, just doing this and then shaking out 3 times is a real energy boost. And it's crazy because we can find as the day goes on, and you'll know more about this than I do, but we can get ourselves into a state of mental fatigue where we're conserving energy to use it because it's so busy, loads of stuff's going on up here. And so then what happens is the body goes into this low energy state. And so we can actually change that just by moving it. So then the brain's like, oh, okay, I can use some energy. And that's so energizing overall because then you will produce more of it in order to
Yeah.
have enough. Yeah.
I just think that's such an interesting, and I relate to that a lot because, sometimes I'm tired, right?
Yeah,
I'm working, I'm
yeah,
tired. And actually my thought process is I need to do less so I'm less
yes,
tired.
yeah.
But actually energizing comes from moving. Obviously
Yeah,
not
not
straight.
always, not always. You know, if you've had like 2 hours sleep and you're absolutely back to back with meetings, then good chances are that you just got to go to bed. But you know, if that's not the case, then you can
Yeah.
use it. And it's a trick that or a tip rather that I give to people when I do go into offices and do these workshops, you know, at that 3 o'clock mark in the afternoon where you have that real dip in energy, afternoon slump, I call it sometimes. This applies to everyone, not just people who are working in offices. And so instead of going for like the Mars bar or the extra coffee, perhaps do a few moves and just see what that does for you and see how it changes how you feel.
Yeah. I think honestly, just that sort of take home message about the importance of things accumulating, that
Yeah,
like cumulative effect. Because I think often, let's say I'll be speaking to, somebody I'm working with in therapy, and I suggest small things. Like I might say, look, when you find yourself feeling really stressed, I want you to stop and take a proper breath.
yeah, yeah,
When I say proper breath, this is what I mean. I'm talking about belly breathing, really trying to and I think sometimes there is a reaction that is like, so for all the difficulties I'm expressing, you're talking about breathing. But I think again, it's helping people to understand how being regulated, like working with your nervous system, is
mm,
the root of staying emotionally regulated. Like if your nervous
yeah,
system is out of whack, everything is in disarray and it's hard to get a grip on anything. Your thoughts, your emotions, all those things impact. And I know that obviously in your book, that was a big part of what you were talking about, is just
yeah,
of working with your nervous system and ways in which you
yeah.
can work with the nervous system.
Mm,
But say for somebody who is highly fraught or just fatigued. And I think we get to the place of we're so used to that feeling that we don't really notice it. But let's say somebody's just persistently low in energy, maybe kind of stressed, anxious. Would there be any like go-to movements that you would say, look, these ones can offer some quick
mm.
resets? Or let's say it's just very busy and there's a lot going on, lots of demand. Are there any like tried and tested ones you say, look, either these work for me or these work for people that I work
Yeah.
with?
Sure. So I think the kind of person that you're talking about, or the kind of people you're talking about, because you said two different types, will often be quite disconnected from their bodies. And so I find that actually it's really useful to first of all try and feel what's going on with your hands, because then it can help you to connect with the brain. So one thing that I'm really into for people, as you've described, is like putting your hands on your chest. So you've got your sternum here, which is like three vertical bones that the ribs attach onto there. And putting your hands here and feeling the sternum. And then if you take a big breath in through your nose, just breathe in. Your rib cage obviously expands left and right, front and back. And then as you breathe out, feel your hands, your sternum, dropping back towards the spine. And it creates space in the spine. And if to the extent, so if that you have issues with your back, maybe pain or tightness or whatever, this can be really good for that too. So you're breathing in, and then next time you breathe out, just let your jaw drop down as well, breathing out through your mouth, and then breathing in, and then breathing out. And then if you just do a couple more, you'll start to feel your heartbeat as well, because wherever your hands are. And there'll be a moment there where you start to feel that you've gone inwards, where you're no longer listening to the stuff around you, but you can hear your heartbeat, you can feel your feet on the floor. And at that moment, you'll know, okay, there's a bit of connection going on here now. And then what I would say to do is to keep going with that sort of breath, but to start really small and do the tiniest shoulder rolls. So teeny, 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 tiny. And you can almost imagine or visualize that you are circling those shoulders from that space where you just had your hands. And you're still thinking of the jaw relaxing, the sternum dropping back towards the spine with every exhale. And then you can change direction. So now you can feel the back of your body as well, because you can feel your shoulders, your arms moving from your back, hopefully.
Yeah.
Good. And then you can just start to let your head drop side to side, allowing your mouth to relax, still focusing on the sternum. Good. And then you can give yourself a nice big hug.
No, it actually feels
Yeah. Good. And then we're going to take a big energizing breath in because we've calmed the system down. Now we're going to get some energy. So take a big breath in and reach your arms to the ceiling like you're peeling your jumper off, and then circle your arms down by your hips. And then again, a big breath in and then breathing out. And then one more big breath in, breathing out. And then just have a gentle shake. Shake your legs out, wiggle everything out. And then tell me how you feel.
genuinely, it feels really nice. It's funny as you call attention to different parts of
Yeah.
the body, you sort of immediately notice, like you said, it's like drawing that mindfulness into, the body. It's like you
Yeah,
immediately start to notice what's going.
exactly. And I will caveat that if you're sort of someone who is really overwhelmed, super busy in the brain, and everything is going, 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 then actually to come to bring your hands onto your chest and go straight into that breathing might be quite difficult because there's just too much going on. So what I would say for that sort of scenario, that person who's in that scenario, would be you need to equalize the stuff in the brain with some movement. So in that case, I would flip it and start with the shaking out. So if you're someone who is feeling extremely exhausted, complete like in a state of freeze almost, start with the coming back to yourself and then building it up to bigger movement. If you're someone that's like that already, then start with the movement where it's shaking, 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 and then start to bring it down and finish with that
I
breath.
see.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, there are loads of different combinations of exercises and movements you can do, and obviously these are two examples, but obviously other things come into it, like whether the person has any physical things going on, like aches and pains or injuries and things like that, as to where you would start. But I guess the point is that it just illustrates that it doesn't take much to change how you feel. And so, and you can use your breath and movement to do that. And when and from personal experience and experience of others, of course, is just that when you feel calmer, everything becomes clearer. So when you are calmer, you can find solutions to things that you might not have clarity on. And so I guess to your point earlier of when you say to people, take a big breath, and they might think, well, that's not going to solve my problems. But the point is that it resets, it brings you back to a better steady state. So you're then able to have more clarity and then yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. And yeah, it is exactly that whole sort of upstairs, downstairs brain, when they're disconnected, it's
Yeah.
hard to think. You can't problem solve, you can't, all the things you need to actually help you navigate through stress or
Yeah.
symptoms are actually gone or out sort of offline.
Just over there.
Yeah, just slightly out of reach.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's always really helpful to just think about how do you ground and center yourself very quickly.
Yeah.
So if it's okay, maybe there are a couple of movements. I know you said you might show us some of the play-based movements.
Yeah. Sure. I'll just move my chair because I think it might be nice to do it on the floor.
I would join
So
you, but I have no mat.
that's okay. So can you see me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move this plant a bit as well. There we go. I don't normally have my mat here. I just did this for the Yeah.
Yeah, for this.
So you could just start by giving your legs a hug and just doing a little rock side to side. So you're really coming into yourself. You can bring your nose to your knees. And this is obviously how you start in life when you're in your
Yeah.
body. So it's super nourishing, it's super comforting. It's literally bringing you back to where you started. And then you can stretch yourself out in a big old X shape, reaching your limbs, head, tail, legs, arms away from your navel, so they're a continuation of that. And then you can get yourself into a little ball, and then into a big star, lovely, and then into a little ball, good, and then a big star. And then if you bring yourself into this position where you've got quite wide legs, and you're going to give yourself a hug so your arms don't get in the way. This is the fun bit. It's a bit of yield and push. So you're going to rock yourself over onto one side, and then you push the floor away and you rock yourself to the other side. Very good for your nervous system. Very fun. And
Yeah.
it's not that often that we roll onto our sides, is it, these days?
No.
No. So there's loads of actual front and back rolling in Pilates. So I'll show you something which is a little bit of an adaptation to that as well. So if we just come, put your hands behind your thighs. So in Pilates, you've got rolling like a ball and seal, but this is just a more sort of simplified version of those. So you're just going to rock and roll up and down. Now, when you go backwards, keep looking at your belly button and your sit bones. You lift those up, those are there, towards your heels, so you don't hurt your neck. And you're
Okay.
just rolling back, tipping your pubic bone towards your belly button. So that's another one, which I find rather fun. The next one I'm going to show you is a break. It looks like break dancing almost. So you get yourself onto all fours and you pull your armpits back towards your hips. That gives you support here. And you're lifting your front body away from the floor. Tuck your toes under and hover your knees. So here's the fun bit. You twist your knees to one side, so you come onto the side of one foot and the other one could be flat, and then you reach your arm up to the ceiling. And then we spin around to the other side. Again, quite fun. Good, yeah, like this. And then obviously child's pose, which you'll probably all know, where you sit your heels back towards your feet and stretch your arms forward. And we can take that up a notch by then bringing the body forward into a kneeling plank and then
Amazing.
pulling back from your sitting bones. Good. You can go forward. I'm saying good like I'm teaching you, Catherine.
Feels like old times.
Myself.
Oh,
And then, so that's that one as well. And then I did talk about skipping, and so, but generally what I would get people to do, skipping, obviously, I'd get them to skip around the room. And if they don't, like, can't skip or they don't want to, you could hop or you could just walk, but just taking you out of your space. And then, so a close chain bounce where we just tap our heels down is rather nice, vibration through the body. And then, you know, when you're really up for it, and you're really going for it, then what I like to do is get people to literally, and I do this a lot, and in fact, I posted something about it at the weekend on my Instagram, is just literally get people to take up space and just get into the weirdest, wonkiest shapes that they can. And imagine that, in fact, that the space is moving you, which is rather fun and nice, and you just go for it.
I love that one. I
Is
love
that,
that
is
one.
that good? Is that a good enough? Is that a good amount of?
Yeah, no, those are really, really genuinely really great. We definitely had what about six, seven different ideas in there, and I think some of them maybe if somebody doesn't move much and doesn't feel very sort of in tune with their body, maybe challenging. But we just had this nice breadth of different
Yeah, can do it on a chair. You know, you can sort of get small and big. Like I said at the beginning, you can shake it out. A good one is elbow swimming, where you take one elbow back and then the other, and you're thinking about drawing an infinity sign with your chest, with your thorax, with your rib cage rather, and then going the other way with the elbows.
That needs to be good as well. People tend to do quite a lot of traveling
Yeah,
over the days,
yeah,
confined
yeah,
off long periods of time. That's a nice like one to just break out and do.
yeah.
You don't have to be
One.
there.
And this is like peekaboo. This is really nice for here as well.
Right.
Yeah. So typically, a lot of people actually who present with lower back pain will have it as a result of not moving the bits above and below the lower back as much as they could. So that being the thoracic spine, so the rib cage area and or the pelvis. So anything that gets this area moving is super good, especially people who work at desks for sure, people who cycle a lot, mums with babies, because you're holding this area quite still and you're quite often leaning on one side as well. Basically, most people who have do things with their arms forward of their bodies,
Right.
sit a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I think,
movements that move the pelvis and this bit of the body are super good for helping the lower back, but creating a bit more equilibrium through the body in terms of how much you move it, each part.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think those are they're great ideas, and I think they're super applicable. Like as in you don't need a lot. You can literally just
Yeah.
do that, like you said, for a few minutes. And I love the fact that, you were saying start early in the day,
Mm.
and then you already essentially set that momentum going.
Yeah, yeah.
And the idea of almost like habit stacking as well, like is one I'll always talk to
Yeah.
people about. I think I got that from the James Clear book, Atomic Habits.
Oh, yeah.
But there's that thing about,
Yeah.
building it into an existing,
Is that Atomic Habits, that one? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, such a useful like way of trying to create
Like a
behavior.
framework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that to suggest to people. So like you said, when you first wake up in the morning, before you get out of bed, you sit and you do that, or, whatever somebody feels comfortable with. But I love like people thinking about where in their day they can place that.
Mm.
But also I think there is definitely something about starting it early, because often
Yeah.
that thing of you get into the day and then it sort of goes pear-shaped and then it feels like
Yeah.
all of your day is now gone.
Yeah, but also it means that if your day does go pear-shaped, you're not going to tell yourself off because you have done something. And
Yeah.
that's part of it is where we get into this almost like a shame cycle where we then start telling ourselves off for not moving, when actually we probably move a bit more than we think, as in like we'll walk around the house, we'll do things, but we don't count it because our idea of what counts is like running around a track field or doing a 60-minute Pilates class. And yes, there is a difference between movement and exercise. However, movement more generally, the more you do, the more you want to do. So it
Yeah.
sets you up for doing more of the other stuff too. And the science out there more recently has been that if you do an exercise class for say an hour a day, but you don't move very much for the rest of the time, then that's not really enough to offset the impact of staying still or not moving very much. So intermittently moving throughout the day is where it's at. So don't ditch your exercise classes,
Like
but
here.
sprinkle in these movement snacks. And the more aware you become of your body, and in fact, maybe I could quickly just mention this, my 4-stage approach, which is part of the Move at Your Desk method, which will help you to become more body aware. So the first step is checking in. So really saying to yourself, how do I feel right now? Do I feel stiff? Do I feel tense? Do I feel overwhelmed? Do I feel anxious? Do I feel figuring that out? Then feel setting yourself up for good movement. So doing the little thing that we talked about before, the shaking out or the breaths, wherever you need to start meeting yourself where you're at. And then it's about the movement. So that's the check-in. Then it's the movement. So you'll do your movement, whether it's moving along to a 2-minute video or a 60-minute class or whatever it is. Then once you've done that, step three is then checking in again and seeing how you feel now. So what has changed for me? Do I feel more connected in the middle? Do I feel calmer? Do my shoulders, are they further away from my ears? Maybe you could look in the mirror if you can't feel stuff and you can see what you look like. And then the fourth step is planning your next movement session. So scheduling it in. So if you're, you might say do your movement slot and then get your phone and pop in a 2 minute movement snack somewhere else in the day. And using that framework, that approach can then really help you to build better body literacy, which is literally understanding your body and how it moves, yeah, and how it connects with your mind. So, and the more we know about our bodies, the better we will move, the better we will feel.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And genuinely, again, just really linking this back for, parents to understand this is so important as one big part, I would say,
Yeah.
toolkit for getting through. I think I would say for parents of younger children, it's a very physical work, picking up, running
Mm,
after,
yeah.
like there's a lot of that kind of very physical work. And then I think as kids get older, it's much more sort of mental, much more emotional. There's also a physical,
Yeah.
but all of
A
that.
lot of driving, maybe.
Exactly. We're like
Yeah.
bring around like a whole
Yeah.
one that, we did maybe taking people to various like, events. But I do think there is this an accumulation therefore of stress in the body.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're aware, sometimes we're not, sometimes it's acute and sometimes it's not. But again, learning that, by keeping ourselves physically grounded as well, that is going to aid all the other work that we're trying to
Yeah.
do is more emotional and more cognitive.
Yeah, and it can help process stuff as well. So quite often, in fact, when I'm doing my postural and movement assessments or do it teaching one-to-ones or even in classes, people will have an emotional reaction to it because it just brings things to the surface and that's amazing because then they're able to process what's going on rather than it just being, stuck somewhere. So
Yeah,
it's really
yeah,
useful for processing stuff as well. And definitely, and also not just for parents, but for children. I work quite a lot with schools as well, and a lot of these techniques can be really helpful for children who are struggling with school in whatever way it might be, even if it's just that, well, not just, but even if it's because they've got lots of exams coming up, or maybe it's because they play a lot of sport and they keep hurting themselves. And so understanding how their bodies work and learning how to move them from a place of better place of equilibrium can really help them in other sports as well. It's really great for reflexes and so on, and helping children. Well, it's just body literacy, isn't it? And this is something which I'm speaking to some schools. They're really trying to focus on this in not just making it about sports necessarily in physical education. It's more about understanding your body and doing stuff like this. These are the teachers I've spoken to, which is only a handful. And if you are associated with the school, I'd love to come and and talk a bit more about this. But it's about like, the better you move, as I said already today, the better you feel. And if we can learn that from a young age, because just sorry, I'm going on a bit now, but there is one thing that I really think about a lot is that compartmentalization of
yeah,
movement and
yeah,
not moving. And we learn this at a really young age because when you're certainly when I was in like nursery, primary school, secondary school, you have to be still and we're told off for moving. And I know that's changed a bit, but it is still distracting. And it is distracting if everyone's moving around, but you can do things about that. So some of the schools that I've worked with, they've introduced little movement breaks. So every an hour or so, they will have an opportunity to move around just to reconnect mind and body. And you have children will have a lot of, if they do need to move their bodies quite a lot, like me, I've got very armsy when I'm talking. Um, if you end up, what they end up doing is locking themselves. So like I would sit like this, for example,
right.
literally holding myself together to stop myself from moving. And I see other people who will do it like with their arms or whatever it might be. And so it's so, okay, you might have to do that to hold yourself together for a short while, but then be able to move and learn how to move properly and learn, that it's safe and it's okay and it's not you only move when you go out on the football pitch or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I love that. I feel like that is genuinely another conversation because
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
working with parents, working in, places where children are, and there's often this expectation of sit still. And
Yeah.
naturally, our bodies know when they need to move and they know what they need to do. And we have to almost like counter condition them to
It's
fit into
yeah.
expectations. And that does store up
Yeah.
issues elsewhere, right?
Yeah.
So again, maybe it is that thing over the holiday season, kids are probably blowing off steam. They're fraught, parents tired, parents fraught. And maybe one of the kind of quick things we can implement here are some of these, maybe some of the more playful movement breaks. Like
Yeah.
was getting a bit grouchy, let's just skip.
Yeah, which I think probably has to work. It works in the classroom if it's introduced, then it makes it more normal to do at home because like the worst thing is when your mum's like, okay, skip. And you're like, absolutely not. But if it was something which they were quite used to doing, it was normalized, then it wouldn't be such a contrast, I think, as well. And the other thing, I don't know, the other thing I was thinking of just there, although I've lost it now, to be honest, so it might come back.
No, but I guess it's going to take the point that you were making about like how you introduce something. And I guess sometimes you can do it in fun ways. It can just
Yeah.
be sometimes a bit of a challenge, like, oh, I
Yeah,
have,
yeah. If it's a, yeah, yeah.
let's see who can, that often gets
Well,
siblings
that's what they do
going.
in offices to get people to move. They'll make it a competition.
Get a competition all of a sudden, or like
Yeah,
make it worth something. And it's like, oh, you've
yeah,
obviously
yeah,
quite sure. So I think it's having those ideas there. And I think
yeah.
just you showing us some of them just really helps. So I have a couple of quick fire,
Okay.
fun type questions, and then I think we could probably stop there. So, morning movement you love, what would it
Oh,
be?
what morning movement I love. That was the I thought it was just like a comma, something else. Morning movement I love. I always go on my I wiggle around as soon as I get out of bed, but then I always do this while I'm waiting for the kettle to boil. I put my hands on the kitchen counter and step back like that and bend my legs and stick my sit bones out. I like doing that. I feel like it's quite elongated, very
Yeah,
elongated. Yeah.
like a good stretch.
But I do all the spinal things I showed you as well.
Amazing. Um, a song that gets you moving instantly.
Oh gosh. There are lots of them, but I'm really into, and I might not pronounce her name correctly.
Right, yeah.
Rosalia.
I think yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah. I like her. But I don't know if you can really dance to her songs, but I would anyway. Just really like her. I really want to know how to pronounce her name. I need to.
Sorry, we'll have to check this one after.
Yeah.
Okay, so final one. One movement myth you would happily get rid of.
That it has to hurt to count.
Ah, I love that. Okay. Yeah, that's a really good one. No pain, no gain, right? That kind of that whole
Yeah, I really don't like
yeah,
that.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. I love that. I agree. Okay, listen, thank you so much. It's
Thank
actually
you.
lovely to catch up, to chat, to sort of, I feel like there's so many nuggets in there that parents can genuinely kind of take away. Any last thoughts, any last words?
It all counts. So even if you just move for a minute tomorrow more than you did today, you'll feel better for it.
Love it. Oh, well, thank you so much, Kerrie-Anne.